Today we'll explore the best decks in Standard format, using results from the 2024 North American International Championships to rank the top 10 archetypes. Number 10, Dragapult Lost Zone. Dragapult EX itself had a lot of hype behind it going into this format, but Tord Reklev gave the Lost Zone version an extra push when he shared his deck list for the archetype and claimed it was probably the best positioned variant. This deck uses the Lost Zone engine of Comfey and Chorus's Experiment, alongside typical attackers Cramorant, Sableye, and Radiant Charizard. What makes this deck special is the focus on Drakloak for its ability, and Dragapult EX for its Phantom Dive attack. Dragapult Lost Zone aims to have a fully single prize board until it becomes advantageous to put Dragapult EX into play. This deck list comes from the highest placing Dragapult Lost Zone pilot at NAIC, Daniel Sopko. Although 120th place was the best finish for this archetype, it had 10 spots in Day 2, which was enough to earn number 10 in today's video. Number 9, Dragapult EX. These decks include partners for Dragapult EX varying between Pidgeot EX, Charizard EX, and Xatu. These Dragapult-focused decks are typically aiming to attack with Dragapult's Phantom Dive as soon as possible to pressure the opponent's active Pokemon, and possibly their benched Pokemon as well. Here we'll look at Chaz Fincham's 22nd place Dragapult Pidgeot deck list. This variant of Dragapult almost always includes Neo Upper Energy as the A-spec of choice, so you don't need to find a basic energy to attach every single turn. Gabriel Kuchera piloted Dragapult EX Xatu to 95th place. Less impressive than the Pidgeot EX builds, but still held its own in a field of over 2,600 players. Xatu provides energy acceleration and incremental card draw, but doesn't quite match the pure consistency of Pidgeot EX. Honorable mention, Regidrago V-Star. The highest placing deck at NAIC with Dragapult EX in it was actually Regidrago V-Star, piloted by Jacob I to 14th place. The statistics haven't placed this archetype in the top 10 today, so I wanted to give it an honorable mention since it was able to place so high at the largest event of the year. Many people believe this is now the best way to play Dragapult EX, since Regidrago V-Star's Apex Dragon, paired with Teal Mask Ogerpon and Energy Switch, makes this the most consistent way to attack with Phantom Dive on turn 2. If you want to learn more about competitive Pokemon TCG and how to unlock your potential, check out my Substack. I have new articles which are free to read and are available right now. If you'd like to support my content, check out ways to do that in the description down below, including coupon codes, affiliate links, and a link to my Substack where you can pledge a monthly amount. Now back to the video. Number 8 is Snorlax Stall, which Ben Cryer was able to place 10th with at NAIC. Snorlax received accompanying flute and handheld fan with Twilight Masquerade, which helped the archetype's power level grow to match the appearance of new decks and the upgrades for old decks. This Snorlax list plays 0 energy cards and 0 Pokemon with free attacks, so you will actually never attack with this build of Snorlax. Snorlax's block ability is the main win condition, being used to trap a Pokemon with inefficient attacks in the active until your opponent runs out of cards in their deck. Number 7, Chien-Pao EX. Chien-Pao Baxcalibur is a very optimized deck, which uses Baxcalibur Super Cold to accelerate energy and use the best attacks available. Chien-Pao has fallen off compared to the Temporal Forces meta, in which it was a tier 1 deck, but its streamlined aggression keeps it around as an archetype that can succeed regardless of the developing metagame. Nicholas Moffat took Chien-Pao to 17th place at NAIC, with 9 other Chien-Pao pilots joining him in Day 2. The Chien-Pao player will use turn 1 to set up multiple Frigibaxes and Bidoofs, and then aim to take 2 prizes every turn, starting turn 2 to end the game as quickly as possible. Chien-Pao EX can KO anything in the game, so this is perfect for knocking out Pokemon worth 2 or 3 prize cards. Iron Hands EX's Very Much is imperative to this deck's success. Without it, this deck might not be able to trade evenly or favorably against most decks built around single prize Pokemon. And finally, we have Radiant Greninja, which is capable of knocking out 2 Pokemon at once, while also providing support with concealed cards. Number 6, Miraidon EX. The Miraidon EX deck has gone through several transformations. The most recent is due to Flaffy rotating out of standard format. We'll see Mike Gibbs' 11th place list as a good template for the deck moving forward, very streamlined and focused on just a couple of lightning attackers to choose from. Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, which is the only new card from Twilight Masquerade in this list, does 240 damage for potentially 0 energy thanks to its seasoned skill ability. Blood Moon Ursaluna provides this archetype with an efficient late game attacker, especially against a Pokemon like Raging Bolt EX, which has 240 health. Alternatively, we could look at Ian Robb's 17th place deck list, which is noticeably very different, including Iron Thorns EX, Raichu V, and a varied supporter lineup. Number 5. Charizard EX Pidgeot EX. Tord Reklev ended up being our highest placing Charizard pilot at NAIC, finishing in 18th place with his unique deck list. Tord teched in a 2-1-1 line of Dragapult EX, which offers utility against decks with low HP Pokemon on the bench, for setting up damage on benched Pokemon to help Charizard knock them out later, and also against Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX, which would otherwise completely wall out a Charizard deck with its ability. The next highest placing Charizard deck was 26th place, piloted by Ethan Reibel. This deck list does not include Dragapult EX, thus it looks more standard than Tord's. You'll notice most Charizard deck lists, including this one, featured some way to get around Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX's ability, namely canceling Cologne, except for Tord, who used Dragapult EX for that. Charizard Pidgeot is still one of the best decks in the game, and it gets even better with the release of Shrouded Fable, which will bring the new Dusclops and Dusknoir cards, which are already seeing success in Japan, alongside Charizard and Pidgeot. Number 4, Raging Bolt EX Ogerpon EX. Raging Bolt EX with Teal Mask Ogerpon EX exploded onto the competitive scene as an incredibly popular deck with the release of Twilight Masquerade. However, the community was unsure if that popularity would actually culminate into success at NAIC. 35 players ended up making it into Day 2 with Raging Bolt Ogerpon, with Brandon Salazar placing 13th with this new deck. Raging Bolt Ogerpon has been able to perform due to its simplicity and aggression. Raging Bolt Ogerpon will often attack on turn 1 going second for up to 280 damage, so it can immediately take the lead against any deck that starts with a 2-price Pokemon active. Because of the deck's linear strategies, however, it is typically easy for decks like Gardevoir, Lost Zone, and Charizard to outplay it. Number 3, Lugia V-Star. Lugia Archeops has often been claimed as the strongest deck in the format, many times in many formats, this being one of them. However, the strongest deck doesn't necessarily mean it is a consistent deck, or the deck most likely to win an event, so this archetype can be controversial and subject to strong opinions. If you are able to activate Lugia V-Star Summoning Star to bench 2 Archeopses on turn 2, you are likely set up to win that game. However, in the event that you cannot set up that ideal board in time, your opponent gets the opportunity to knock out your Lugia V for 2 prizes and potentially run away with the game. There were 2 high-performing versions of Lugia at NAIC. Alex Szymanski's 21st place list included Drapion V as an attacker to hit Darkness weakness, Weirdeer V as your way to one-shot Pokemon since this list omits the Cinccino line, and basic Lightning energies to more consistently attack with Iron Hands EX. Isaiah Cheville's 32nd place list was much more standard, including Cinccino for its ridiculous damage output, as well as the unique inclusion of Roseanne's backup to recycle the legacy energy. Number 2, Lost Zone Box. Lost Zone Box is one of the most convoluted and intimidating decks to pick up and play, but it just won the largest North American tournament ever in the hands of Andrew Hedrick. The most important thing to understand about Lost Zone Box is that it is a toolbox-style deck, which means it has several attackers, and it is the pilot's job to decide which attacker is best for every situation. Sableye spreads damage counters, Cramorant attacks for free, Radiant Greninja can KO 2 Pokemon at once, Blood Moon Ursaluna is tanky and does a lot of damage, Iron Hands can take an extra prize card, and the most unique inclusion here was Iron Thorns EX, which is a great tech against Lugia since its initialization ability turns off Lugia V-Star's Summoning Star. Number 1, Gardevoir EX. Finally, our number 1 deck for July is Gardevoir EX. There were 22 Gardevoir pilots just within the top 64 at NAIC, and 6 within the top 8, so it's safe to say that Gardevoir dominated this event. Stefan Ivanov finished in second place with a pretty standard deck list, opting for the extra turn 2 consistency of Hyper Aroma, as opposed to playing Unfair Stamp, which was the more popular choice at this tournament. This archetype is also a toolbox deck, much like Lost Zone Box, since it has a spread of different attackers for different scenarios and matchups. Monkey Dory is the newest Pokemon included in this deck and plays a very large role of both healing your own Pokemon and damaging an opponent's Pokemon at the same time. The combination of Fluttermane in the active and Klefki on the bench typically proves lethal against Lost Zone decks, since even an Iron Bundle, which forces Fluttermane to the bench, will typically be met with Klefki promoted to the active, thus continuing the ability lock. My favorite list from the top placements for Gardevoir is actually Grant Manley's 12th place list, which is very streamlined and doesn't have anything fancy going on. With the 2024 season coming to a close at NAIC, we now begin League Challenges and League Cups for the 2025 season. The World Championships will take place this August, and Regional Championships will resume in September. Be on the lookout for coverage on Shrouded Fable, the Worlds format, and the beginning of the 2025 season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.